Here's something nobody tells you about the most dangerous people in history. They didn't start dangerous. They started hurt. Now, the cold open. A city is on fire. Not a small fire. A 6-day, 70% of Rome is gone kind of fire. And the man responsible isn't hiding. He's not panicking. He's performing. Singing. Playing his lyre. Watching the flames like it's a sunset he personally arranged. Most people look at that image and think, monster. I look at it and think, textbook. Because everything Nero did makes complete psychological sense once you understand what was happening inside him. That's what we're doing today. We're not recapping history. We're diagnosing a man. Now, who is this guy? Nero, Emperor of Rome, 54 to 68 AD, dead at 30. One sentence of context because it matters. He inherited the most powerful empire on Earth at age 16, with zero emotional foundation to handle it. That's the setup. Here's what actually happened. Next, the wound. His father dies when he's 3. His mother gets exiled, leaving him behind. He gets passed between relatives who mostly don't want him. And when his mother finally comes back, she's not there to be his mother. She's there to use him as a political chess piece. Psychologist John Bowlby's attachment theory tells us that the relationship a child forms with their primary caregiver creates a literal internal blueprint for how love works, for whether the world is safe, for whether you are worth staying for. When that blueprint gets built on abandonment, on a parent who treats you as a means to an end, it doesn't just make you sad. It rewires how your nervous system responds to connection, to threat, to power. Nero's mother didn't raise a son. She manufactured an asset. And somewhere underneath all the ego and the golden statues, he knew it. And then, the mask. Nero didn't start as a monster. His first years as emperor were actually reasonable. Reduced taxes, expanded the arts, had the philosopher Seneca co-running things like a responsible adult in the room. This is what psychologists call the narcissistic false self, a performance, a carefully constructed version of yourself designed to attract the one thing you never reliably had growing up, approval. Because narcissistic personality disorder isn't arrogance. It's the world's most exhausting compensation strategy for feeling fundamentally worthless. The grandiosity is the mask. Underneath is someone whose self-esteem requires constant external reinforcement, just to hold its shape. Nero performed publicly as an artist, genuinely humiliating for a Roman emperor, like a president doing open mic nights, because the applause was the closest thing he had to feeling like the love he got was actually about him. His mother kept reminding him it wasn't. She lobbied his senators, undermined him publicly, showed up at state events trying to physically share his throne, so Nero had her killed. It took 3 attempts. The first involved a boat engineered to collapse at sea. She survived, swam to shore, and sent him a note saying she'd made it safely. He responded by sending soldiers. After Agrippina, the mask came completely off. He kicked his pregnant wife to death in a rage, had a senator executed because his facial expression was too boring. This is narcissistic rage, and it's never proportionate because it's never actually about what triggered it. It's about the terror of feeling small, of being, at some level, the 3-year-old whose mother decided power was more important than he was. And then comes the God complex. By the time Rome burned, Nero had crossed into delusional grandiosity, past performing superiority into actually believing it. Believing the normal rules of consequence simply don't apply to you. He built a palace on Rome's ashes covering up to 300 acres, with a lake, indoor forests, a rotating dining room ceiling that rained flowers on guests, and a 100-foot bronze statue of himself at the entrance modeled on the sun god. He didn't build a home. He built a monument to his own divinity. He blamed the Christians for the fire because scapegoating is the oldest move in the narcissistic playbook. Manufacture an enemy, redirect blame outward, never become the person who is wrong. Same pattern whether you're running an empire or just that one coworker who is somehow always surrounded by incompetent people. The Senate eventually declared him a public enemy. His supporters vanished overnight because the loyalty was never real, just proximity to power. Nero heard the news and reportedly sobbed and asked why no one loved him, then drove a knife into his own throat. His last words, "What an artist dies in me." Not Rome, not the thousands dead, the art, and finally, the pattern. Nero is not a cautionary tale about power. Power just gave him a bigger canvas. The psychology was already there, the fragile self-esteem, the rage, the inability to tolerate feeling ordinary. You have met this person, maybe at work, maybe in a relationship. Someone who cannot take criticism without burning something down and finding someone else to hold the match. The only difference between that person and Nero is resources. The wound was real. The awful childhood was real. None of that was his fault, but at some point there's a choice between facing the pain and outsourcing it. Between building something real and performing something grand. Nero never made that choice, and 2,000 years later we're still picking through the ashes. Rome survived. They built the Colosseum right next to his giant golden statue. The word Colosseum literally comes from his statue. The most enduring monument to Nero's legacy is the arena where he threw his scapegoats to the lions. History has a very dark sense of humor. And that is Nero, a wounded kid with unlimited power and zero accountability. The most dangerous combination in human history. This is the psychology of kings, and we are just getting started. If you enjoyed this, drop a comment and let me know. That's all I need to keep this series going, because trust me, Caligula is next, and it gets so much worse. See you in the next diagnosis.